So good evening, and we will begin. And we again are doing a marvelous garland of rare gems, biographies of masters of awareness in the Dzogchen lineage by Nyingthig Khenpo. And the two masters that we're going to be chatting about are Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu and Patrül Rinpoche. And then next time we will be looking into Adzam Drukpa, and then we will complete our series, although there are just amazing, wonderful masters throughout this book, but we'll come to a point where it connects to the practices that we are doing. Not that they all don't, but very specific. So we begin with the disciple of Jigme Lingpa, and that is Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu. And if you're following in the book, it's on page 216. And so Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu lived from 1765 to 1843. And he was considered an embodiment of Avalokiteshvara, and we sometimes use the name Chenrezig, and the deity of compassion. And he was from an area where the nomads live in eastern Tibet, and where a wonderful river called the Zachu River flows, and it flows into China. So he was from an area where there were nomads. Nomads are yak herders. And he was from an area with an alpine meadow. And these kinds of areas where the yaks graze are full of medicinal herbs that grow in the grasses. And so that's why the yak milk and the yak yogurt is so nutritious, because this is what the yaks are feeding on in these alpine grasses. And they do move with the seasons. And I had the opportunity to have some of the yak yogurt when I was in Tibet, and it's just amazing. It's just wonderful. So in the area where Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu was born, there was a guardian spirit, and he was a guardian spirit of Buddhism, and he was dedicated to upholding and protecting the teachings of Padmakara. So Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu was born in a very wonderful area, and there were amazing signs. And he was also from a wealthy family. Unfortunately, in this family, all of the sons had died, and the father died young as well. And essentially, one in that area would have thought that Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu would take over his father's calling, but he yearned for a guru. So his mother, who was said to be like a Dakini, was very supportive of this. At the same time, she said to him that it would be best if he went to central Tibet, southern Tibet, because some people might think he should do otherwise. And so she just wanted him to be far away and doing what he felt called to do. And so she gave him, because he was from a wealthy family, a large lump of, it said, Chinese silver. And it was supposed to be as big as a horse's hoof, and that he should go again to central and southern Tibet. And then, of course, the neighbors wouldn't talk. And so he traveled to Lhasa and to Sheldrock, which is still there in the Yarlung Valley. And he met another famous teacher called Dodo Chem, who sent him to his guru, Jigme Lingpa. So this would be the first meeting of Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu and Jigme Lingpa. And it's said that when they met, that Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu was so taken with Jigme Lingpa that his devotion brought him to a great level of enlightenment. And so they met at Tsering Jong, where I also had the privilege to go. It's a hermitage. It's where Jigme Lingpa lived and practiced. And so they met there. And it's said that when Jigme Lingpa first beheld this great guru, Jigme Lingpa, that he gave him this letter of introduction from Dorub Chen. He offered him a mandala of enlightened embodiment. And then his devotion is what caused realization to dawn in his heart. And that was by devotion. And he requested for advice, and Jigme Lingpa was delighted, and he took him under his care, and then granted him the complete transmission of tantras, explanatory commentary, pith instructions of the secret Nyingthig, teachings of Dzogchen. It's called Dzogchen approach of utter lucidity. And he empowered Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu as his regent of the ultimate lineage of realization. And here we come with that one phrase that we've heard many times, like one vase filling another. And then at that point, Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu went to an area called Sare Chikchar to practice the secret path of great perfection of lucidity. And he reached the level at which phenomenon resolve into their true nature. So that's quite a level. I will actually read that again. So he practiced the secret path of the great perfection of lucidity and reached the level at which phenomenon resolves into their true nature. It said their local gods and protectors appeared, and they appeared in physical form as a Bhutanese man and woman, and they offered him sustenance. So when he was practicing, they were benefactors. And then he was in southern Bhutan, and he also practiced, and this is considered a great compliment, he practiced in a way similar to Milarepa. He did disciplines, ascetic, he walked barefoot. It's said that his feet were so frozen that somebody saw his footsteps and thought that he was a yeti. So that's a pretty big swollen foot. And he also practiced in an area we've heard quite a lot about, Chimpuk, and here they call it Chimpuk Highlands. And then one evening at Chimpuk, he met a man who was wearing a red woolen garment and a red hat. And Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu felt a lot of faith towards this person, and they began to circumambulate a temple together. And later he began to ask him questions about meditation experiences and realizations that had come about. And he felt that this man was not separate from the Buddha. And so he began to ask him more practice questions and advice. And one thing the man said was later in life, he should return to a place where he had originally come from to pursue practice. And he said that he would also be giving many, many teachings. And Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu thought to himself, if I was to meet the omniscient Longchen, it would be this man in red. And later he went to talk to Jigme Lingpa about this. And Jigme Lingpa says, no, that was actually Guru Rinpoche. And he was coming to see you and also to be with him. So then Jigme Lingpa began to give comment to Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu's practice, and he said that he had excellent meditation and realization had dawned within him, and that he had reached a point at which phenomenon resolved. So once again, we have that expression. And then Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu traveled with Dodrup Tren, another famous disciple of Jigme Lingpa's, and they received together both Dzogchen and Mahamudra. And these were teachings from Jigme Lingpa. And then Jigme Lingpa gave him the heart drop of Longchen practice. And Jigme Lingpa honored Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu as his inner heart son. So this is direct disciple and a holder of the ultimate lineage. And he was the one who gave him the name of Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu. And then he did Vajra Mantra, and he also ordained as a monk. And then he went into a primary retreat. He mainly taught in Eastern Tibet. And later in his life, he met Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, whom he recognized as the tulku of Jigme Lingpa. And he gave the teachings that came from Jigme Lingpa to Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. This is very traditional that the lineage is handed down in this way. And then Patrül Jigme Choki Wangpo, which is Patrül Rinpoche's name, became the principal heart son of Jigme Nyugu, and he gave the oral instructions, which were recorded by Patrül Rinpoche, and he also gave great transmissions and influenced the entire area of Tibet and Nepal and Bhutan and China. So when Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu fulfilled his purpose, his form resolved back into his youthful face body. And this is the supreme, primordial, inner, basic space. His remains were preserved in a statue of Padmakara, which still exists and brings great blessings today. So then we go to Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu's disciple, Patrül Rinpoche. So Patrül Rinpoche, we are familiar with his name because of the book Words of My Perfect Teacher. And he also is a very well-trained disciple, a lineage holder. And he lived from 1808 to 1887. And he was one of the foremost students of Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu. The other was Khyentse Rinpoche. And this was from a terma that Patrül Rinpoche was on the outer level, the embodiment of Shanti Deva of India. And many of us have studied the way of the Bodhisattva, Shanti Deva, and all of his practices of compassion. And the Patrül Rinpoche here is actually the third in the lineage of Patrül Rinpoche. And the first Patrül Rinpoche was considered an incarnation of Avalokiteshvara, again, Chenrezig, compassion. And Dodrup Chen prophesies that he would become a great master of the Nyingthig teachings. So Patrül Rinpoche heard the preliminary practices 25 times. And then he received from Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu teachings on the heart drop of Longchen. And again, this phrase, like one vase filling another. And Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu conferred on Patrül Rinpoche the cycles of the heart essence of utter lucidity in their entirety, and gave the seal of enthronement and empowered him as a holder of the ultimate lineage of the heart essence. So here again, we have that transmission. And then some say that Patrül Rinpoche was the speech incarnation of Jigme Lingpa, with all of his writings, and also that he took down a lot of the teachings and made commentaries on them as well. So he practiced, Patrül Rinpoche practiced intensively, and he received a teaching which is within the lineage, and it's called Dzogchen Gyalmo, which is the Great Bliss Queen. And this is a very extraordinary practice, and it has quite a dynamic energy. So here we have this practice, which is done today, passed down. Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu conferred on Patrül Rinpoche cycles of the Vajra heart essence, of utter lucidity in their entirety. And also he did the seal of entrustment and this empowerment into the lineage of the heart essence, and also the dynamic energy of awareness. Patrül Rinpoche became a monk, and Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo and Patrül Rinpoche were united as Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu's inner heart sons. So in this chapter where Patrül Rinpoche is talked about, so is Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. Very great, another great master. And they were considered like the sun and the moon. And they came with the lineage, the extensive tradition of the heart essence of utter lucidity, as we mentioned. And Patrül Rinpoche practiced in many places. He spent a long time training in advanced yogic practices. Again, the heart drop of Longchen. And within the chapter, there are lists and lists of teachers and trainings that he did that I won't mention, not that they aren't super important, but there are a lot of them. So Patrül Rinpoche used to give 45-day retreats and gave extensive explanations of the heart essence tantras. And Patrül Rinpoche said that the introduction to the great perfection, which he received from Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu, for him was like daybreak, like the sun rising. So these practices for him were quite extraordinary, quite impactful, and they very much influenced his writings. So he was ordained as a monk at Dzogchen Monastery, which is still active. And the later part of his life, he stayed in another area called Gyalse Monastery, which was the seat of Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu. And his enlightened activity was known all over Tibet. And it said when Patrül Rinpoche gave teachings people stopped killing animals. They repeated Mani mantras 100 million times. And also, Patrül Rinpoche restored a wall made of stones engraved with 6-syllable mantra, which had been erected by his former incarnation. And when I was in Tibet, I saw these walls. They are walls of very large stones, very beautifully, like calligraphy painted, different colors. And they would be mantras and sacred seed syllables. And one I went to was quite high, maybe 6 feet high, and very long also, really like a wall. And there is one in Yushu, and then there's another one, which is many, many miles from Yushu, which was established by Princess Longchen when she was bringing the Buddha statue from China into Tibet. So these are quite wonderful. And so for me, it was very fascinating to hear Patrül Rinpoche restoring one of these walls of stone, very large stones. And this also we haven't heard before, is that Patrül Rinpoche was practicing in a cave and he got leprosy. And we don't hear too much about leprosy in Tibet, but we do, of course, have heard about it in India. And he basically went into deeper retreat and he healed himself from leprosy by doing the black form of Haygriva, which was revealed by Ratna Lingpa. And he also received a transmission of a practice called the union of all Buddhas in equalness. And Chogyam Rinpoche declared that Patrül Rinpoche was the custodian of his cycle of heart drop of the 3 families. Also, Patrül Rinpoche did a retreat on Manjushri, and he encountered the heart drop of Chetsen. And in some traditions, there is the practice of Chetsen. And it was a cycle revealed by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, again, this great master. And Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo praised Patrül Rinpoche and said that he was like the Mahasiddhas of India. Patrül Rinpoche had supernormal powers, and he could perceive without impediment 80 of his incarnations, and he saw back 80 incarnations that he had given a precious gold ring to an Indian Mahasiddha. And he said since that time, he has always had a noble rebirth. And it was just something stated in this chapter. Patrül Rinpoche also memorized, and memorization was done quite a lot in learning, still is. It's still being done, is memorizing of texts. And so he memorized Dispelling Darkness without direction, a commentary on the heart essence of secrets by Longchen. And Patrül Rinpoche gave extensive lectures about that. And also one of Patrül Rinpoche's students gave this teaching to Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. So we're within many of our lifetimes. And then also that teaching was given to Jigme Punsak, who was the head monk in recent time of Lawar Gong in Tibet, and who came to the States. So many have met him. So Patrül Rinpoche was instrumental in keeping this lineage uninterrupted. And then he taught all of the learned masters of the day. He also taught Adzam Drukpa. And that's going to be the next teacher and master that we talk about. And so Patrül Rinpoche was very well known throughout Eastern Tibet. And it's said that everyone who attended his teachings began to act in noble conduct and practice the Dharma purely. And again, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo praised Patrül Rinpoche as having attained the level of the great master, and also praised his written works, which gave easy access to profound topics, and they were written from experience and from a non-sectarian point of view. And so through Patrül Rinpoche's practice and teachings and transmission, it ensured that all of these methods and the lineage would be unbroken. At 80 years of age, he wrote a poem and also made commentary on the text, The Precious Treasury of the Basic Space of Phenomena, which is a very famous text of Longchen Rabjam. And Patrül Rinpoche had a vision of Longchenpa, and this is where he received the enlightened intent of the lineage. And Patrül Rinpoche gave exquisite explanations of the text, and he made the tradition of studying of the 7 treasuries, which we're going to mention in a minute, and then he composed a poem to encourage us all to practice. So as probably you know, the 7 treasuries of Longchenpa are very great works. And so I want to read just a little bit of the poem and then show you a couple of the texts of Longchenpa that Patrül Rinpoche is referring to. So the poem that Patrül Rinpoche wrote, of which I will not read all of it, but just a couple of portions that he's giving us instructions. And the poem begins on page 230, but on page 231, Patrül Rinpoche says, the precious tradition based on the written works of the omniscient guru, and of course that's Longchen Rabjam, is unique, wish-fulfilling gem in this world. Since Buddhahood cannot be found elsewhere, who would not find great joy in reading them? These precious treasuries, and these are the books of the 7 treasuries, contain the meaning of the enlightened intent underlying the hundreds of thousands of tantras of the pinnacle spiritual approach, the sublime Vajra heart essence. Their treatment is so vast, their subject matter so profound in meaning, that to encounter them is to encounter the very face of Samantabhadra. They bring the mastery of the meaning found in the 64,000 verses of Tantra, knowledge of the way of abiding of all of samsara and nirvana. And then he continues on page 232, and Patrül Rinpoche says, in particular, the genuine nature of mind, the ultimate significance of the Dharmakaya is revealed precisely as naked, timeless awareness, free of anything to be added or removed. This lies at the very core of the omniscient guru's enlightened intent. Again, it's Longchen. Most profound of all is the treasury of the basic space of phenomenon. And what is so incredible is that we have this book available to us. Published by Padmakara Translation Group, to be bought on Tibetan Treasures. And so what we are now talking about, and I actually get the chills, is that we have gone through the progression of how this lineage was handed down. And now we as recipients, I want to cry, are being communicated that we have the book, we have the words, and we have the transmission from Longchen Rabjam. And he also mentions another book, but it's just amazing. We've been meeting for 9 months, and here it is for us. So incredible. So I'll read just a little bit more as we are talking about Patrül Rinpoche praising the omniscient Longchen. The words and underlying meaning of the enlightened intent of pinnacle approach are beautifully subsumed under 11 headings in the treasury of words and the underlying meaning, which presents the key points for practice, the pith instructions in a complete but concise way. This text is singularly powerful in cutting through the root of conditioned existence. This is in the middle of page 232. In particular, the genuine nature of mind, the ultimate significance of the Dharmakaya is revealed precisely as naked, timeless awareness, free of anything to be added or removed. This lies at the very core of the omniscient guru's enlightened intent. And again, most profound, the treasury of the basic space of phenomenon. And then we go to page 235, still with this very long poem in praise of Longchen. And it says, well, this starts at the end of 234. Therefore, lift your voice, sing it aloud, study it as you recite its verses, read its prose. If you are never separated from it, your confused perceptions of samsara will crumble to pieces. And at a certain point, once the transmission of blessings, the key to realization has flowed to you, ineffable, timeless awareness will well up within you. You will behold the true face of the omniscient Dharmakaya Guru. Relying on the blissful ground of being, the mind will be uninterruptedly blissful. There is no spiritual practice other than studying this work. This itself lies at the very heart of meditation and spiritual practice. As long as you study noble works like this, the enlightened intent of Dharmakaya will arise as a matter of course. So without increasing the inner turmoil of mental striving, examine this work in a spacious frame of mind. Its profound meaning is not far away at all. Come to this decision and rest in a natural state of relaxation. So here he's giving us the text and he's giving us the instruction. And then on page 237, he says the 5 emotional poisons, this is down and 3/4 of the way down, the 5 emotional poison blazed in me, and he's talking about himself, and I wandered about burdened with distractions. Yet, when I, whose negative karma makes it hard for me to deal with my confused perceptions, encountered and studied such a noble work as this, my ordinary perceptions and reactions just collapsed. Profound. Therefore, and this is his encouragement, for you and those like you, whose minds are firm and little troubled with thoughts based on the 5 poisons, whose fortune is good and whose samaya is pure, to encounter and study this work means that you will assuredly receive the transmission of blessings and attain the sublime experience of timeless awareness. So remind yourselves of this over and over again with certainty. So those are his instructions to us. And then he also talks about, besides the treasury, he talks about the treasury of pith instructions. That's another one that he refers to. And then he also refers to another one of the texts. And again, here is another one, which is called the precious treasury of the way of abiding. So he talks about a number of the treasuries. And once again, it's just so amazing. They're all available for us. And so all of these transmissions that we have been talking about over the many 9 months have come to us. And these are Patrül Rinpoche's instructions to us. So I hope we have a chance to, or hope everyone has a chance to at least look at the 7 treasuries. And I know I have a friend who would read them very slowly in the evening. And they are a treasure, and there's something to treasure. And they are very much praised by everyone, the 7 treasuries of Longchen. So those were a little bit of our fireside chats about Jigme Gyalwa Nyugu and Patrül Rinpoche, and of course, with some parts of that being about Khyentse Wangpo, and with instructions for us. So we will conclude this fireside chat, and then we will stop our recording.